All right. Welcome in, everybody. You found the deep dive. You're here, I think, because you like to cut through the noise. You like to get to the heart of things, figure out what really matters.
Absolutely. And today we're going deep on something that affects every single one of us, how we connect with other people. Be ready for some serious aha moments as we unlock the wisdom of a true
You
classic.
got it. We are diving headfirst into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
This book, oh man, it's been around forever, but those core ideas about interacting, about really connecting with people, I mean, they're so powerful, so relevant still today, right?
Yeah, no question. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get ahead at work, build solid friendships, or just navigate your everyday life a little smoother. This stuff applies.
Totally.
And I think when some people hear that title, right, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it can sound a little, I don't know, manipulative, like you're trying to be someone you're not.
I can see that.
But here's our mission today. We're pulling out the actionable stuff, the insights you can actually use right away to get better at connecting, at making a positive impact, at building relationships that truly mean something. We're giving you the distilled essence, the cheat codes, without all the fluff.
Love that. Straight to the good stuff.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. What do you say?
Let's do it. Let's start with something that seems so basic, but it packs a huge punch. I'm talking about the power of a person's name and a genuine smile. Now, Carnegie, he was adamant that your name is the most important word in the world to you.
Makes sense. I mean, think about it. Walking into a place where they know your name, even if it's just your local coffee shop, it just feels good, right? Like you belong.
It's true. And the book, it highlights this perfectly. It might seem small, but it speaks to that deep human need to be recognized, to matter, to be seen as an individual.
Ask.
And if we connect this to a bigger picture, a psych principle, you might say, it all comes down to social validation. We crave feeling like we're important to others. And using someone's name, it's such a direct, personal way to give them that feeling.
Right, right.
Now add in a genuine smile. It's like this universal signal of, hey, I'm friendly, come talk to me. When you smile with your whole face, especially those muscles around your eyes, it signals warmth, openness. It makes people feel more comfortable around you.
Yeah, you can spot a fake smile a mile away, and it has the opposite effect, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's like, a genuine smile is like, it's an outward sign of I'm happy you're here, and it's
Oh,
contagious. It makes others want to smile back. It's like a nonverbal, hey, let's connect.
I love that.
So for our listeners, the big takeaway here is make a real effort to remember people's names. And I mean, really remember them. Repeat it back to them when you first meet. Connect it with something visual about them, whatever works for you. And when you interact with them, really smile. A genuine smile, not that fake pasted on thing. These small things, they can make a huge difference in those first impressions.
So true. Building on that first connection, the book then dives into something that's so important, but it's easy to overlook. It's about showing genuine interest in other people.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, it's natural for us to want to share our own stories, our experiences, right? But Carnegie, he turns that on its head. He says you'll actually build stronger connections by focusing on being interested in other people rather than trying to make them interested in you. What do you think about that?
It is kind of counterintuitive, especially these days when everyone's all about self-promotion.
Yeah.
But if you stop and think, most people, they really do enjoy talking about themselves, what they're passionate about, their experiences, their point of view. The book even says it.
Yeah.
For most people, they are the most interesting subject they know.
Huh. That's so true.
So if you want to truly connect with someone, you have to shift your focus outwards, genuinely.
Exactly. Imagine you're at a networking event. Instead of jumping right into your elevator pitch, what if you start by asking people about their work, their journey, what they're excited about, and you really listen to what they have to say?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're going to leave a much more positive, lasting impression that way. They'll feel heard, valued. And it makes you think, in our conversations, how often are we really listening to understand versus just waiting for our turn to talk?
That's a good question.
It is.
So the key here is to really cultivate like a genuine curiosity about the people you're talking to. Ask open-ended questions, the kind that encourage them to share more, and practice active listening. Really pay attention, not just to their words, but how they're saying it, their body language, all of it. And let your responses show them you're really engaged.
I like that. Engaged. It's not just hearing the words, right? It's deeper.
Exactly. Shift your focus from trying to be interesting to being genuinely interested.
Now, if we want to build strong relationships, we also need to understand what can weaken them. And Carnegie, he warns against criticism, condemnation, and complaints, big time.
Okay.
His point is, criticism, it almost always puts people on the defensive, like a fight or flight response.
That makes sense. When you feel attacked or judged, your first instinct is to protect yourself, not listen and learn.
Exactly. It's like an instant wall goes up and any chance of having a productive conversation goes right out the window. The book gives a great example. Let's say a coworker messes up. If you say, you messed up, that's just going to make them defensive and resentful. Right.
But if you say, hey, I see where things went wrong here, let's figure out how we can avoid this next time, you shift the focus to solving the problem and growing, not blaming.
Right, right.
And if you look at this from an emotional intelligence point of view, criticism often attacks a person's sense of competence, their self-worth. And that can really damage trust and create this negative association with you. So it's not about ignoring problems. It's about how you address them that really matters.
It's the approach.
Yeah, the approach.
So for everyone listening, be really mindful of how you communicate, especially when giving feedback. Before you say anything, think about how it might land on the other person. Can you frame it in a way that's helpful, focused on solutions? Can you guide them towards improvement instead of just pointing out their flaws? You're not avoiding tough conversations. You're just having them with more empathy, aiming for a positive outcome. Absolutely. And this ties into Carnegie's next big point, the power of making others feel important. He believes that deep down, we all crave feeling significant, and meeting that need is crucial to connect with and influence people. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's so true. We all want to feel like our contributions matter, that we're valued for who we are and what we bring to the table. I love the example in the book, the difference between saying, good job, which is fine, and saying something specific like, I really appreciate the work you put into that presentation. Your insights on the data were so helpful.
It's so much more impactful, right? It's specific. It shows you're really paying attention.
Right. It acknowledges the person's unique strengths and what they specifically contributed. It goes right to the heart of that need for recognition and significance.
It does.
So what can our listeners do? Be more aware of the people around you. Actively look for those opportunities to recognize their efforts, their achievements, big or small. And don't just think it. Say it out loud. Be specific. Tell them exactly what you appreciated and why. That kind of genuine recognition is incredibly motivating, and it strengthens your bond with that person.
Couldn't agree more. Now let's talk about something that can be a little tough, a little vulnerable, admitting when you're wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Carnegie says being honest about your mistakes, owning them, is actually more likely to earn your respect than trying to dodge the blame or make excuses.
I can see that, though it does go against our initial instincts sometimes, right? We want to protect our ego, save face.
For sure.
But the book shows how powerful a sincere apology can be. Like, let's say you're late. Instead of saying, oh, the traffic was terrible, which is an excuse, you could say, I didn't manage my time well, and I'm sorry I kept you waiting. That shows accountability and respect for the other person's time.
It's so true. What's fascinating is how being vulnerable can actually be a strength when it comes to connecting with people. When you admit you made a mistake, it shows humility. You value the relationship more than your own pride. And it creates a sense of shared humanity of we're all in this together, and it builds trust.
I like that. So what's the action step here? Practice owning up to your mistakes quickly and honestly. Don't get defensive. Don't pile on the excuses. A simple, direct apology goes a long way in building credibility and strengthening your connections. People appreciate honesty, and they respect people who take responsibility.
I agree. And this leads us to another important principle that Carnegie talks about, the effectiveness of talking about what the other person is interested in.
Okay, I'm listening.
He argues that whether you're trying to persuade someone or just build rapport, focusing on their interests instead of just your own is way more effective.
It's about understanding what motivates them.
Right. Exactly. The example in the book about getting a friend to go hiking is perfect. Instead of just saying, hey, hiking is awesome, you should come, what if you frame it around their love of photography? Like, you'll get some amazing shots of the scenery. That speaks directly to their passion. It makes the idea way more appealing.
Right, speaking their language.
Exactly. Persuasion becomes less about pushing your own agenda and more about finding common ground, aligning your message with what they already value. And that takes empathy, the ability to see things from their perspective. Which brings up a great question. How often do we really consider the other person's point of view, their interests, before we try to get them to do something or even just have a conversation?
That's a good point.
It
You
is.
get caught up in our own heads sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So the takeaway here is make a conscious effort to think about what truly matters to the people you're interacting with. What are their passions, their goals, their worries, and then tailor your requests, your conversations, your interactions to resonate with those interests. You'll find your communication becomes so much more effective.
So true.
Mm.
Now, I know we talked about avoiding criticism before, but I think it's worth revisiting with this next principle, the power of encouragement. Carnegie believes that praising even small improvements and acknowledging effort goes much further than criticism in helping people grow and strengthening relationships.
Absolutely. When you focus on what someone is doing well, even when they're still learning, it's positive reinforcement. It motivates them to keep going, to keep trying. The book talks about how important it is to acknowledge progress when someone is learning a new skill instead of dwelling on their mistakes.
Right.
It builds their confidence and makes them associate learning with something positive.
So what's the action item here for our listeners? Be on the lookout for opportunities to encourage people. Notice their efforts, acknowledge their progress, give them sincere praise, even for what might seem like small wins. That positive reinforcement can have a huge impact on their motivation, their self-esteem, and your relationship with them.
Couldn't have said it better myself. As we wrap up our deep dive into how to win friends and influence people, it's important to remember these principles aren't about being manipulative or fake. They're all about building genuine connection, rooted in respect and understanding.
Exactly. It's about tapping into those core parts of human nature and applying these principles in a way that feels true to you. And the great thing is you don't have to master all of them at once. Even if you just pick one or two and really focus on putting them into practice, you'll start to see positive changes in your interactions.
It's about taking those small steps, being intentional. So, for everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. Which one of these principles really resonates with you, with your relationships, your goals? How can you start applying it, like today, in your very next interaction?
I love that. It's all about taking action. Because when you start to develop these fundamental skills, it opens up a whole new world of deeper connections, more meaningful relationships. And that's something we can all benefit from.
Absolutely. It's a journey, and we're all in it together.